Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Fit Chicks Chat. My name is Laura Jackson,
And I'm Amanda Quinn.
and on today's episode, we are going to be talking about goals, specifically why you're not hitting your goals. So, of course, we talk a lot about, health and weight loss and nutrition and fitness and all of those things. But this can be applied to anything. And I think it's a really relevant conversation to have a lot because we see it so often within our academy, the conversations we have with our friends, our family members. So many people want something in their life and they feel like they can't have it
Mhm.
because of some reason, right? But they can't pinpoint what that reason is. They might have just already decided, I want to buy this house. I want to lose 25 pounds. I want to be in a relationship, whatever it is. But then they're like, "I just don't even know why, like, it's not possible for me. I don't know what to do. I don't even think it's possible for me. This is outside of my reach." And we are such huge believers in goals, like in setting goals and going after them. And I love when anyone tells me they have a goal. So we thought it would be really helpful if we look at some of the reasons why you're not hitting them to help you start to get on that path and maybe start the path or just move through any blocks that you're having.
I think it's really important too, because I think oftentimes people feel like, well, I have a goal and it's just not happening. And they just think, well, I've been thinking about that, or I've been planning this goal for 10 years and I've been trying to reach this goal for so long and it's just nothing is working. And really there's like a strategy behind it. Like there's reasons why goals don't always work. And I'm not going to reveal it now, but like there's so many different things. Like there's small things that you can do, small shifts that are going to help you actually get to that goal finally, so that you're not feeling stuck. I mean, we were stuck at a goal target for so many years and then we realized the thing that was missing, right? Like when we were talking about like in our business, we were like, what is the thing that we're missing? And so it's you've got to be really able to like see what the goal is and then work towards it step by step. So anyways, we'll be going into all of the reasons why you wouldn't be reaching them and how to actually move past that to be able to reach your goal.
So I would love for anyone who's listening right now to think of something in your life that you want to create, because that's really what a goal is, right? You want to create something that you don't have yet in your life. And that could be an outcome, it could be a physical thing, it could be a new mindset, whatever it is, but it's something that you don't currently have that you have to then create for yourself. So so think about this as we're going through this. So the first reason why I believe most people are not hitting their goals is they're not even clear on what their goals actually are.
Mhm.
So we've all heard this idea, and I don't love it, but it's like that SMART goal framework, right? The idea of you have to be
Yeah.
specific, measurable, achievable, which is the word that I don't like, relevant, and time bound. Right?
Hmm.
But I even wanted to start off with the specific, the word specific. Most people just throw out these goals like, I would love to lose weight. I want to lose weight. But they don't have a specific number in mind or a specific pant size in mind or a specific health goal. Maybe it's certain blood work numbers that they want. They just say it so vaguely and so general, which again is part of the goal. But the thing is, when we don't have any specific metrics, we don't have any specific deadlines, our brain doesn't know where we're going. And we don't know when we've hit those mini milestones towards the goal. And when we don't know we've hit the mini milestones, we feel like we're getting no momentum. And when we don't feel like we're getting momentum, we think, what's the point in doing this? Right. So, the
Totally.
very first thing I always really ask people is, what is your goal? And many times people will say, well, I don't really know. Or, like I said, it's
Mhm.
very vague. I want to lose weight. I want to be in a relationship. I want to make more money. But that's too vague because it doesn't give any clear path or help you even start to set the path of where you're gonna go, and then see those benchmarks that you hit along the way to know what you're doing is working, or do you need to try a different strategy?
Mhm. No, it's so true. Like, for example, if it was weight loss was your goal and you say vaguely, like, I want to lose weight. And then if, say, the next week you get on the scale and you've lost a pound, then technically you have achieved that goal because you haven't been specific. But if you
Yep.
say, I want to lose 20 pounds, and we're just using weight loss as an example because it's such an easy example to use when we're talking about this. But if you say, I want to lose 20 pounds and you lose 1 pound, you know that you're on the path towards reaching that goal. If you continue doing and be consistent with what you're doing, you're going to achieve that goal eventually because the way that you're going about it is actually working to help you move step by step towards that goal. But you have to have a clear end goal too, because also it's like you could lose 20 pounds and you're like, I don't even know where I was going with this. Like, do I want to lose 20? Do I want to lose 50? And then you keep going and going in momentum. So it's like you have to be very clear about where you're trying to end so that along the way you can like lay the foundation to get there. And you can also celebrate all of those steps along the way, which will then continue with your momentum, which will help you continue with your momentum.
Well, and I just think it's also, again, even weight loss, it's when we talk about a number like 20 pounds, well, that could be 20 pounds on the scale, but we could go even deeper with like, do you want to be clear? Like, I want to lose 20 pounds of fat. I want it, like, and of course, we don't love only having one measurable. Like, we don't love pounds as a measurable for weight loss only,
For sure.
because again, that could be losing muscle mass. And we don't want to be losing muscle mass. Not getting into the details of that, but it's just like having some different specifics around your goal. So when I say clarity, doesn't mean you just have to say, I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to make $1 million or whatever. You could also have, I want to lose 20 pounds and I want my blood sugar levels to be here and I want to be able to climb a mountain. But the thing is, you don't want too many goals at once. So that kind of ties into this lack of clarity. Some people, they have too many goals. So they don't even know, they might even know where they're going, but they're trying to do all of the things. So my advice is always to have some different measurables around the goal, but don't have all of them as separate goals, right? Like it's like weight loss isn't just a number on the scale. Maybe it's a pant size that you are currently wearing that you want to not wear anymore. Maybe it is that you have a fitness goal along with that, but it's having that clarity without overwhelming yourself because our brain will get very overwhelmed. We need to direct it towards where it's going. So, some ways to help you guys improve clarity, of course, is just to sit down with your journal and be like, what is my goal? And try to be specific about it. Have a measurable to know when you have hit that goal because one coach has said to me once, the reason you have this goal is for a win or lose mentality. Like it's like a scoreboard, right? When we look at a sport, we know someone will win the game and someone will lose the game. It's not saying they're losers for life, but it's just that in that moment, we're not the person hit the goal who won and the person who didn't win did not hit the goal. And at first I was like, oh, that just feels so like black or white to me. But at the same time, if we kind of look at it from a goal perspective and we're like, at least if I know, and I'll use money because money can be less loaded for people than weight. Let's say my goal is to make $5,000. I know if I've made $4,500, I'm close to my goal, but I haven't hit my goal yet. Right? It's just having that measurable and not even that I will win. So losing the win or lose mentality, but I've achieved it once I hit this measurable. These loosey goosey vagueness, it's too, you don't, because you may have surpassed the goal, but you don't even feel like you've moved forward or you don't feel like you've achieved it because you never had a measurable to know, okay, that's once I hit the goal, which is why I'm a big
Yeah.
believer in big goals, which is why I hate the word achievable because I think any goal is achievable, but I like to have micro goals on the way because then you feel like you've hit these goals as you're going. So like my big goal is $1 million. If I make 5,000, then I make 10,000, then I make 20,000. Like I know I'm moving in that direction, but they feel more achievable than that big goal in the moment. Same with weight loss, 100
Mhm.
pounds. Okay, first we got to lose our first 5 to get to 100,
Yeah,
right? And then you move in that direction. So just write
exactly.
it down and be really clear. And what is that measurable? What is it that you want to achieve? And why do you want it? That's the other thing for clarity. I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of people, the thing is when it comes to clarity is they just say they want something and they don't spend time thinking about, do I really want this? And why do I want this? And when we take that time to
Yeah.
sit back and be like, actually, because I've done this, I've thought I've wanted certain things, and then I'm like, actually, I don't want that. Like, I want the idea of it, but I don't want to go through the work it's going to take to get there. I don't want to take the work it's going to take to maintain. Like, I don't want it enough. There's not enough of a why
Yeah.
for me. So I've let it go.
Yeah. It's funny, I was gonna say that, like, when you figure out your why, then you'll figure out, like, if it's deep enough to make you actually do all of the work. Because goals generally, especially if they're big goals, they don't come easy. It's not something that you're going to
It's
just
hard.
achieve overnight. You have to change and shift so many areas in your
Mhm.
life to be able to reach that goal. And so you have to want it bad enough to be able to do the work, which is why the why, that's where the why kicks in, right? Like that's where even as coaches, we'd always ask people, well, what is your why? Like, why are you signing up for this boot camp program? Why are you signing up? Why are you showing up every single week? What's your why? Because it has to be bigger than just this, you know what I mean? Like there's always a deeper thing which keeps people moving forward. And so when you understand your why, that's how it keeps propelling you forward towards the goal. If you don't know your why, it's so easy to lose sight of reaching that goal. It's so easy to let it go because you don't have the deep-rooted cause behind it that's backing it and giving you the momentum.
Well, and you also don't like we want to create goals because we think we're going to feel a certain way when we hit them. And usually that's
Yeah.
happier, right? We think we're going to feel better. We think there's this land where we hit the goal and everything is great. And that's not the case. Like goals to me are there for intentional growth. They're there for like I want this in my life, so I'm going to create it. And I'm going to like it's not going to happen overnight. And then the person you become on the way to your goal is really the biggest benefit because by the time you get to the goal anyways, you're like it just feels normal because you've spent so much time building up to it becoming that person, right? It's like okay, so now I've made the $1 million. Now I've lost the 50 pounds. Now I've done this. And you expect it to be this big fireworks and like bang, when in all reality, all those little micro goals along the way have turned you into that new person. And you're like, oh, wow, I hit the goal. Yay. And now I'm going to set another goal.
Yeah.
So just make sure that first step is there because if you're not hitting your goals, 9 times out of 10 is because your goal is not clear enough, right? You
Hmm.
don't have you don't have that destination on your roadmap to even think about how you're going to get there. It's not clear enough and there's not enough of a desire for it that doing that self work, getting clear on that, and do I really want it? Am I willing to commit to doing the work it takes to get to there? Are two of the biggest questions I ask. This is what I ask on day one of our holistic nutrition weight loss coach certification. We talk about this in our very first call. Why are you here in our orientation? Why did you sign up for this? Where do you want to be in 8 weeks? Write it down right now. Make this intentional. Because if we don't know where we're going, how are we ever going to get there?
Hmm.
Um, the second reason why you're probably not hitting your goals is because, and this one, I don't even like saying this in a way because I believe in magic. And
Yeah.
so I always find when people tell you things are unrealistic or make them achievable, I feel like it really starts to set a limiting belief in. But the
Well, it does.
second reason,
It shrinks your capacity, right? To think oh, that's not possible for me. That's unrealistic for me. So I don't
yeah. So
even know
what I
if
want
I
to say is
agree with this either.
yeah, but I do agree with the word unrealistic expectations around the amount of work and
Effort.
time it will take to get there. I'll say it
I
that way.
agree
Not
with that.
unrealistic expectations
Yeah.
about the goal, but unrealistic expectations around the time it will take. Because a lot of times we think it's going to take less time than it does, around the amount of
Always.
work it'll take, and then also around the obstacles that can come up.
I agree with that 100%. I like the way that you rephrase that because I think even when we look at our business, how many times have we set these like super ambitious goals of
Yep.
like, oh, we're going to get this done and oh, it should take us like 30 days. It should take us
Mhm.
1 month. In all reality, it takes us 6 months, right? To
Yep.
do it properly, to do it right, to do something the way that we really like envisioned it to become. It takes so much longer and we have all of these unrealistic expectations of timelines, and I think that's actually like a massive learning that I think that you and I have went through over the past few years in our business is trying to be more aware and trying to be more realistic with our expectations of our timing, not of the goals, but just of how long these things are going to take, especially when we're building new programs or, launching a new product or things like that. Thinking about all of the effort that has to go into it and actually being realistic about the timeline because that's what causes a goal to sort of fizzle out is when you're like, oh, well, there's no way I could do this in 30 days. And then you get frustrated and overwhelmed, and then it doesn't feel good.
Totally. But then it's kind of this interesting thing as people who set a lot of goals, a lot of deadlines, a lot of I think though, even it's like reestablishing your relationship, right? It's like holding yourself accountable to that first timeline, but then not beating yourself up if you don't hit it. Because if you don't have some sort of a timeline, I truly believe people take as long as they're given. Now, again, that's
Yes.
different with a health and fitness goal because there is a, you know what I mean? You want to lose weight healthily or you want to build muscle in a way that, you know what I mean? Like it takes, well, it does take time to build muscle without injuring yourself. So those things are a little bit different, but when we're talking about in terms of like a business deadline or creating something like a product or a program, I do think if you give yourself 60 days, you will take definitely more at 60 or more. If you give yourself 30 days, you might take it in 30 to like 60, right? Because it
Hmm.
forces you to really think about
Buckle
and put
down.
your butt in the chair and do the work, which again goes
Yeah.
back to the whole thing. I was just talking about this with my mom. So my brother was on a health journey and
Hmm.
it was so interesting because he had been, you know, trying and trying and he wasn't hitting his goal. And then on for my wedding, I was getting married in Mexico. And so many people came down for it that suddenly had lost all this weight. But it's because they had set that timeline that they wanted to. Now, some of them were like, I'm not where I want to be, but they were still in the direction that they want to be. There were still, you know, whether it be 10 pounds less or whatever it was. And again, not just getting focused on a number and not saying weight loss means better, but like they were had a maybe an outfit they wanted to fit into or a certain tone that they wanted to look like. But my brother having that timeline of the wedding really pushed him into doing more of the effort. So it's like it's kind of like taking a step back and understanding things are going to take time. And so set the timeline, but even if you don't hit that, just extend the timeline, but hold yourself accountable to the first timeline, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because this is where it's like
Yeah.
if you're already giving yourself grace on the first timeline and you're just starting, you're going to push that back and push that back and push that back, and nothing will get done. Like there's been
Hmm.
conversations where you and I were like, it's like our YouTube channel, which we talked about last week. We're like, October 22nd, YouTube channel is launching, which we'll give you guys an update on after. But it's like
Yeah.
that literally is, we've said it out loud, we set the deadline. Now we're like, we got to get to work on that.
Yeah.
And if any obstacles come up, if we did need to extend it, we're not thinking about that yet because 22nd is still in our mind of like, that is the day. We'll figure it
Hmm.
out. So,
Exactly.
yeah, if you're not hitting your goals, it might just mean that you need some more time. You might need some more, you know, some obstacles may have come up that have slowed you down in your progress. It doesn't mean though that we're not going to get to the goal. It just means that I always think of a map, right? Like you're on the way to a destination. It's like you're driving and suddenly the highway's closed and you got to go down another route. It just takes you a little longer to get there, but you're still going to keep going.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that, yeah, it doesn't mean that the destination is not an option. It just means that you just have to like figure out a new pathway for it, right? Or continue down the same pathway and you will eventually get there. So don't let always set your timelines and set your goals and everything else. Try to be realistic about it, but then if you do need a bit more time, don't just give up on the destination. Just keep going. Keep going,
Yeah.
especially if you know that you're reaching it, like that you're moving in that direction. You have to keep going on it.
Which I'm a big person too, which is why I've talked a lot about this on this podcast is planning for obstacles in advance. Like
Yeah.
if you go through and ask yourself, what are all the obstacles that could come up between me and this timeline or me and this goal? It's really interesting because then when they do come up, you don't feel as at mercy to the obstacle as opposed to feeling like, hey, I actually have already kind of thought about what would happen. So,
Hmm.
like, if you already know, for example, like you're traveling a lot, or that you have certain events, or that you're in a season where, like, okay, always during, you know, September, kids are going back to school. I know that's when I'm overwhelmed, right? When you already think about it in advance, it makes it less of a like a stop you in your tracks as opposed to just like a speed bump. I don't know why I'm on all
Hmm.
these like driving references today.
They're good metaphors though. They work.
Okay, so Amanda, you want to go with what's number 3?
Yes. Next one is poor planning and organization. So a reason why you might not be hitting your goals is just poor planning and organization. You don't really have any clear action steps or milestones. So when we look at a big goal and we see this end goal as this big scary goal, let's just use money as an example. I want to make $5,000 in 1 month. That's totally attainable and totally possible. But what happens is that it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. It's like you see this big end goal, but you have no idea exactly how you're going to get there. So you don't know if say you're a coach, you're like, I don't know how many clients I need to reach that goal. And I actually teach this in one of our workshops, our Passion to Profit. I talk about the idea that it's like, if you don't even understand, first of all, what your end goal is, and then you don't know what you need to achieve that goal, and you don't have any kind of actionable steps or understanding of how many clients you need to reach that goal, or how many sessions you need to teach, or how many packages that you need to sell, or whatever it is that you're selling or you're offering as a coach, if you don't have any clarity on what that's going to be leading you to that end goal, so that you can then start breaking it down and saying, okay, well, if I need 20 clients to reach that goal and I already have 7, then I only need 13. And then you're actually starting to work towards and you're building momentum towards that end goal. It feels like this daunting end goal, this big thing, this big scary thing at the end. And you're like, okay, but like, what do I do? You have to like reverse engineer it. Like you've got to like take the end thing and say, okay, now that I know that my goal is to make $5,000, I know that I sell a personal training package, or I sell a coaching package, or a nutrition consulting program, or whatever it is. I sell it for $500. So therefore I need 10 clients. And
Yeah.
over that time, you're like, okay, what is my goal every single week, every single day? How many people am I going to reach out to? How many clients am I going to, try to like connect with? And how many workshops am I going to teach to try to bring people in? Like whatever it is, but you've got to figure out the pathway to get to the end goal. You can't just have an end goal with no clear path to reach there.
Totally. And I think that that is just, again, even ties back to number one of not even knowing. If we don't know where we're going, we have a
Totally.
lack of clarity. We don't even know like even thinking about what we need to do. But I know so many people. I was just having this conversation with one of my family members around the fact of like, and they've talked about this goal they've had for so long. So then I said, okay, so what are we going to do? What's the action steps?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm still trying to figure that out. So I was like, okay, what do we need in place to help you figure that out? Right? Like
Hmm.
how do we start this ball rolling? Like smaller tasks that can start to move us there. And it's just like I can see the overwhelm and how then feeling like it's impossible because yes, she knows what she wants to do, but she does not know where to even like how she could even go about it. And I think that's a
Hmm.
really big thing for people is there are so many people in this world who have what you want, right? We are all in this world a community and we all learn from each other. Everyone's a student and everyone's a teacher. Like that's something I
Hmm.
truly believe. I'm a student for life and I am also a teacher. But we all have something to offer each other. And there is someone who has walked the path that you have walked, which is why Amanda and I always invest in mentors. We tell our people who invest in us to teach them, mentor them, coach them. We also have coaches, right? Like we're always learning. And if I'm going to go do something I've never done before, I'm going to go seek out the people who have walked that path. So who can help me to know and fast track what it is that I need to do. So that could be, again, a business coach, a health coach, going back to school, a mentor, whatever it is, to have those steps in place because that's the worst feeling when you do know you want to achieve something and you just feel like you're standing still. And every person doesn't know how to reach a goal until they've hit it. Because you got to try a
Yeah,
bunch of stuff, right? Like you don't know.
totally.
There is no actual clear path, but there is steps that will move you there. So
Mhm.
always starting, and that's kind of for me, hiring someone or working with somebody or watching podcasts or, watching YouTube of people who have what you want and what are they doing and what have they done and how can that apply to your life. And the other
Yeah.
thing that I just want to say about this, I think too is really important is having a system to track progress. Because when you have a big goal, and you're so focused on the goal, you don't track your progress along the way. You don't see the momentum because you're just looking at where you want to be. And that takes away from your whole journey and feeling good about yourself. And it will be the thing that will hold you in, like stop you in your tracks if you don't have something that says, wait a second, actually, this, I'm so much further ahead than I was. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm so much further ahead. So
Yeah.
having a system, and that's why too, I love having a coach, right? Or having a group. Like for us, we don't have a coach, we're part of a mastermind, but every time we go to that mastermind is like a check-in. So I'm always like, where are we at between the last time we were here? How far are we towards our goals? And then it also keeps me more motivated because I'm like, I don't want to show up at the mastermind and not have done any of the things I said I was going to do at the last one, right? Like, so
Hmm.
having someone and then having some systems to show I'm moving in this direction.
Definitely.
Um,
And I mean, also just to add to that, like I think the power of having somebody help you on that pathway as well when you don't know, if it's a brand new thing you've never done before, if reaching $5,000 in a month is something you've never achieved in your business because you're just starting out or you've only had one client, trying to figure out that pathway might feel a little daunting. So find someone that's done that and have them mentor you and show you their pathway and see if it works for you. Like I remember after my daughter was born, um, that I hired a coach because I was like, I know how to coach myself through like health and wellness and movement and all these things, but I don't know how to coach myself. I've never coached myself after having a C-section because I've never had that
yeah.
before. I've never had to do these kinds of different modifications and movements. And yes, I could read about it and understand it in principle, but I've never done it. And so I hired someone who had went through that similar process because I was like, I want someone to be able to help me because they achieved the thing that I want, which is healing my body after this experience, right? And so it's so important to just find someone that you feel like you can connect with, but that have also they've walked that pathway because then you're like, okay, it may not be exactly the same and it might not be the same scenario, but at least they have insight into different things that they've done to help them achieve the goal that you also desire. So there's a lot of power behind that.
And it also helps you when you talk to somebody who's done it to realize, wait a second, I'm
It's
not
possible.
moving at a slow pace. I'm not like, because they will tell you, like it doesn't happen overnight. Everyone who looks
Yeah.
like they're an overnight success, whether it be at weight loss, whether it be at business, whether it be at relationships, you are not seeing the back work that they have put into things.
Yeah.
So things look like overnight, they suddenly have like I remember I just even the 2 days ago I was looking at this girl on Instagram who I've seen like I don't really know her, but she suddenly is like I saw a picture of her and then I saw a picture of her and she's like lost, I think it's like 75 pounds. But then I didn't see that like all of the pictures of her health journey in between. Like she'd been posting about her health journey on that way. But I hadn't seen her
Yeah.
in since that time. So if this was my first time ever logging onto her account and I just saw that kind of before and after, you're just thinking, oh, you're not seeing all of the grind along the way, right? Like all of the work
Hmm.
being put in. So it's like, it's just interesting. So that's why they can also give you real perspective on what it's going to take and also relate to you in the moments when it feels like this is not happening for me because they've been there too.
Hmm.
So the fourth thing, and this is something I am a big believer in too. I believe in magic. I believe we're all students and teachers. I also believe that a lot of reasons why people aren't hitting their goals is they are not consistent enough. And we are
Yeah.
not holding ourselves accountable to ourselves. I
Hmm.
have such a huge passion on this. Like the most important relationship you will ever build is with yourself. And if you are constantly letting yourself off the hook, not keeping your commitments to yourself, not showing up, saying you want something and not doing the work that it takes to get there, it's like you're just constantly it's like having like a boyfriend that just keeps cheating on you and you just stay with them. You know what I mean? You just feel like crap about yourself because you're not building that relationship with yourself. Also, if I look at someone's program, if they're not hitting their weight loss goals, if I look at someone's business, if they're not hitting their finances, I guarantee one of the first things I'll see is inconsistency.
Yeah.
They're doing things part of the time, but they're not doing things all the time. So the momentum is not building, right?
Hmm.
So it's like that really getting into the place of being honest with yourself. Am I actually being consistent with this? Am I putting in the work I think I'm putting into? Am I willing to give up short term pleasures, short-term distractions like Netflix and sleeping in late and you know what I mean? Like doing this, am I willing to put that aside for time to use that time to work on my business, to go to the gym, to whatever? Like we have to be honest with ourselves. And I think so many times in this society, the way it is now, I truly believe that I love the self-love side of things. I think it's so important and we don't want to go to the dark side of that. But I also feel like that is giving a lot of us this idea that going after a goal is bad and that it gives us permission to not show up for ourselves for the things that we truly want. So I just think it's a really important conversation to have because like that's one thing I hold myself to is my word and I know when I'm being inconsistent or not. Like
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't have the thing I
Yeah.
want because I'm not doing what I need to do, period. And I just don't make a big deal about it. I'm like, okay, why then do I need to, what am I doing? What am I not doing that I need to do? And how can I start doing that?
Well, yeah, and I think that once you're honest with yourself and once you get into the practice of constantly being honest with yourself about that, it's hard to not be, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Right? Like in the beginning, sometimes it's like, oh no, like I'm doing all the things, or I am doing the work, or I am showing up, or whatever. And then you're like, but am I really? Like, and when you start being honest with yourself, then it's really hard to go back to
Or am
not
I
really
doing
having
enough? Sorry to
true.
interrupt you, but it's also like, am I doing enough? Like, that's the other thing. People are doing things, but they're doing, it's like we talked about this before. It's like weeding the garden. Like you're pulling out two weeds at a time, which I just did this morning. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many weeds. So I'm not doing enough to clean the garden. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just, but I'm doing part of the work.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an
Yeah.
important thing to be like, it's not this black or white, like being honest with myself. Cause then I feel like too, it becomes like people start to, it's just like, am I doing enough of these things to get that momentum?
Hmm. No, that totally makes sense. And I think, one of the best things that you can do to start developing consistency and discipline is just with habits. Like when you're trying to create a new habit, it's always about just gradually building on top of them, right? So you could use habit stacking, which is where you take an old habit and then you add something else, or you could just take a new habit. If it's something that's brand new to you and you're like, okay, I'm going to start working out 5 days a week and I'm going to start being really consistent with that. And I'm going to show up every single day and go to the gym 5 days a week and I'm going to do this. That can feel really overwhelming, especially if you're going from 0 to 5, right?
Yeah.
So instead, it's like, okay, can I start just by building this habit and saying, okay, every day I'm going to move my body for 30 minutes every day, whether that's at the gym or whether that's going for a walk or whether that's, going for a bike ride or whatever it is. But I'm going to just stay consistent with that. Or maybe it's 3 days in the beginning. And then you gradually increase from there because when we try to do something from 0 to 100 right away, it can feel really daunting and overwhelming. And then it's almost impossible to stay consistent. It's almost impossible. I'm not saying it is impossible, but it feels almost impossible because you're literally shifting gears from like nothing to everything. And that you have to take on a whole new identity when you're doing that, right? When you're going, especially when it's like training or something like that. If you went from zero working out to going to 5 days a week, you might do it for a few weeks and then you might start noticing that you're, slipping off and like you're only going to do 4 days one week and then it's this. It has to become something that becomes ingrained in you and it becomes a part of who you are, but it's not going to happen overnight. And if you try to overwhelm your system, you're just going to literally almost, it's like you repel against it. And so you
Yeah.
have to start small and then gradually build on it. And that's how you start building habits where it becomes, this is a part of who I am. It's not just something I do.
But and also though you have to have a plan to develop that consistency, right? So it go like
Totally.
there's this common theme, right? It's clarity, it's planning. Because a lot of people too, they'll have a habit and they're like, I'm going to start a business and I want to work on my business and I'm going to build this business. But they're not like, I'm going to work on it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. Like if they're like, I'm going to work on it every day, that's too much. Okay, I'm going to work on it Monday, Friday, Wednesday before my kids get up,
Yeah.
right? It's like
I'm going
having
to
that
spend an
and then
hour, I'm going
being
to
like,
dedicate this hour every single day to
and then
this.
be like, okay, I've done that. I've been consistent with that. Like, so my commitment to myself is I'm going to do that for 4 weeks. And at 4 weeks, I'm going to increase it to 5 days a week. But it's like
Yeah.
having a deadline too for the increasing. Like it's just like people are like, I'm starting off small. I'm moving my body for 30 minutes, every single day. But then where's the point where we're going to up level it? Where's the point where we're going to push
Yeah.
it to the next level? You have to have a plan for that. So I always think like even your small habits need deadlines that are moving you towards your goal. So
Mhm.
like if I'm going to be doing a collagen supplement, even this is something I started doing. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to start a collagen supplement, I'm committing to it for 5 months because that's when, a lot of the benefits show. So I'm going to invest the money in it. I'm going to invest the time. I'm going to drink it every day, after I have my coffee. So it's like kind of this like habit that has now had a deadline on the habit. But then after five
Yeah.
months, I'm like, okay, if I like it, it will now be ingrained in me and I'm going to keep going. So it's like having those because consistency and discipline are muscles you have to build. No one teaches us how to do this, right? We show up for work every day because we have to, and it's someone else tells us to come. When we have to tell ourselves to do things, it's very hard. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's very hard to have that discipline to show up at the gym when no one's telling you to do it, to sit down your butt in the chair and do the work on your business when no one is making you. So it's
Mhm.
creating, you really have to build that muscle and then it comes with that self-trust too. So
All of them are
really
weaved
looking
together,
at like
really.
it's a lot of on that's why I love goal setting though, because it's a real honest conversation with yourself. And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be judgy. It can literally be like, I don't have what I want because I'm not doing the things I need to do to get there. So do I want
But
to
now I'm gonna
change?
commit to do it.
Yeah. So do I want to change or do I not? And if I do, what do I need to have in place to support that change? Because
Yeah.
it's really hard for any of us to do anything on our own. So again, that goes back to what we were just talking about before, having that, progress tracking built in, especially if it's in a group, like whether it be accountability to a coach, a group you're a part of, a membership, a partner, but having something to, and I don't really love the word accountability. I believe in self accountability, but having somebody who you can use as a tool to support you on that way. I think it's just really
Mhm.
beneficial.
Well, I mean, and I think that that's actually even like with our certifications, right? Like that's one of the things that we've built into all of our certifications that has been so powerful with helping our graduates complete the program is that we have not only the group accountability, like where you're accountable with your peers and you can check in with them, and we have this whole private community, but we also have our success coaches that are creating accountability. They're checking in with you, they're monitoring your success. And I feel like, yes, self accountability is so key, but then there's a lot of people that do need the extra support to help move them, especially if it's something that's brand new again, right? Taking a certification like ours might be something that people haven't been in school in 25, 30 years. And then all of a sudden they're like, I'm going back to school to learn this thing. And it feels a little daunting. Having a success coach and having someone that's there to help create accountability and connect with you will only continue to help you on your pathway towards your success. You have to be accountable for yourself, but having someone outside of you really kind of supporting you along that journey is only going to benefit in most scenarios.
Well, and having the self accountability to say, I need help and I'm going to go and find
True.
help and accountability and what I need, right? No one else is going to fix us. No one else is going to get to us to our goals. We have to do it ourselves, but we don't have to do it alone, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you don't have to do we can but you have to build that support network around you.
Hmm.
Um so the fifth thing why a lot of people aren't hitting their goals is a fear of failure or success, which I always think is so fascinating because so many times when
Yes.
people are first starting a goal, they are afraid of failing, which makes sense to all of us, right? Like the idea of like, well, what happens if I try and it doesn't work out? Which is so funny because like now that I've had such big goals and that I haven't hit so many goals for so long and eventually I hit some of them, I'm still working towards other ones. Like I don't have a fear of failing. I have more
I
of a
don't
fear of
either.
success. So this is what's interesting. A lot of people sabotage right when they're close to their goals
Hmm.
because if they actually hit that goal, then they
They
are
don't know
in,
what's next, what's on the other side.
yeah, like a lot of our minds, it's this idea of they just or you don't even know you're doing it. There's not like a big, "Oh my God, like what is on the other side?" and blah, 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 but it's just this thing of like you're so close to it and a goal, if you've had it for a really long time, it's like a friend. It's like something that's comfortable. It's like, "Well, what now? Now I've got to set another goal. I've got to set a bigger goal." Right? Like it's this
Mhm.
weird thing. And then also because so many elements in your life change, especially for, I talk about this a lot in our certifications. When it comes to weight loss, like a lot of relationship dynamics are built on well, for whether it be weight or whether it be for anything, but the way you currently are. And if you
Yeah.
change, it means a lot, it will either trigger things in other people, or a lot of people feel like it means they have to change. And the dynamic starts to change between relationships. And
Hmm.
it's very hard for a lot of people to navigate. So they self sabotage because,
But it's so interesting, isn't it? It's
yeah,
so freaking fascinating how
it's
that
so
works.
fascinating.
Like, I'm doing this one thing for my life, and then therefore it's going to impact, it's going to have a ripple effect, which we know it does, but it's going to have this ripple effect that's either going to be positive or negative for my close circle, or the people
Yep.
that surround me, or the people that follow me, or whatever it is. And so therefore, if I'm afraid of the effect, I'm going to then stop what I'm doing. And you can't do that. Like, that's the thing. It's like, we can't you can't do that to yourself. You owe yourself the opportunity to be able to reach your goals. You owe yourself the opportunity to be able to continue down that pathway, because you set those goals for a reason. There's a reason, there's an intention behind it, there's a why behind it. And if you stop yourself from reaching that goal because you are so afraid of how this may or may not affect others in your circle or your family or the people that follow you, or, especially people that follow you where it's like strangers,
Yeah.
you're literally stopping your own progress in your own life. And that to me is like mind blowing, because it's like we can't do that to ourselves, right? We just can't. Like, this is your life. You have to live your life for you, and you have to go after the thing that you truly want. You set the goal for a reason. The goal is there because you want that in your heart, in your soul. Everything about you is saying you want this goal, and there's a reason why. So if you're changing your outcome just for others, you're literally shifting your entire life to appease other people instead of yourself. And that to me is just, you know, it makes my heart feel sad, because I'm like, we have to be able to live our life, our true life, for ourselves. So
And the thing
sorry,
I
I
think
just
is,
went on like a little rant, but
I think it's
I
so
feel so
hard
passionate
though.
about that.
Well, no, because I feel like there's like two different places when it comes to goals. The fear of failure is usually which will keep you from starting. When you're afraid of
Yeah.
failing, you won't even start, right?
Yeah. You'll think
Once you
about it
start
constantly.
something, yeah, you will think about it, you'll dabble in it, you'll think, I want to
You'll
do
talk
this.
about it.
Yeah, you'll
You'll
talk about it.
sign
I
up for
want to
something,
lose
you'll
weight.
cancel.
Yeah,
You'll have a
I want to
membership, a
start a
gym membership, you
business.
don't go. Yeah.
Yeah, like I get it, and there's no judgment. Like I've been there,
No.
but the
No judgment. It's just, this is just like factual.
the
Like, this is what
failure
happens.
but the failure of success happens after you've started and you're moving towards the goal, right? So it's like
Yeah.
almost like the fear of failure is not there. It might still be there a bit, but it's not there in the same way as before. Fear of failure holds you back from starting. Fear of success holds you back from finishing. And
Yeah.
it's like that's the interesting thing, and that's why I love mindset work so much, because the only way to be on to yourself with this is self-awareness. Like you have to know yourself, you have to watch yourself, know your patterns. Like now I can see myself when I'm doing it, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
why am I suddenly was I working like so gung ho on that project? And right now I'm suddenly thinking, I want to go watch Love Island instead of like sitting here
Yeah.
and like doing like, and
Or
it's like
have you
this
ever been
intense, like
Yeah.
intense feeling like I really want to do it right now. I'm like, but I could do it later. Like, but I see myself, I'm trying to like distract myself with other things instead of just being in it, right?
Or have
Or
you
it's
ever
even
done the
like,
thing where it's like a project, where I've done this to myself a million times over, where we have like filming to do for a project, and I'll film, like, if we have like 10 things I have to film, I'll film like 9, and then I don't film the last one.
yeah.
I do this all the time. Like, I catch myself and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, just do the thing." And it's like, and then it just sits in the back of my mind being like, "Just do it, just do it." And I just don't do it, and I avoid it, and then it's like, and then once I do it, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like, I made so much drama around this for 0 reason."
Well, and I think too, like it's all also based in like our nervous system, right? So as soon as our body feels like we are going into the unknown, our fight or flight starts to get triggered, or our fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? Like our fear, our stress response starts to get triggered. And failing can trigger that, but also like, I'm actually going to do this. I have to become a different person. Or maybe it's like, I'm getting bigger. Like that was something too that I found. It's interesting when I look back. I didn't realize it at the time, but like in my head, I wanted us to have a bigger business, but I was also equating success with more responsibility, more work, more time, more all of these things, right? Because I was like, if
Yeah.
we have more success, we have more of all, we have like more money, more problems. You know what I mean? Like it's like this two thing. Instead of being like, okay, because most people again are not an overnight success. So what you're not seeing before behind too is like the small steps into expanding your nervous system and what you're comfortable with, which is why on last week's podcast or two podcasts ago, I was talking a lot about one of my big things is putting myself this year in rooms and conversations and situations I wouldn't normally be in. And the reason being is because I want to expand my nervous system. I want my nervous system to feel comfortable being like and safe in any situation when it comes to, and I'm specifically talking about business, but it might be that like for you, you are so uncomfortable wearing like a tank top, right? Like let's say someone out there is like so uncomfortable wearing a tank top out in public, maybe you were at home. So maybe it's like, okay, I'm just going to wear the tank top just to go to get a coffee and come home and start expanding so your nervous system is like, yeah, we're fine wearing the tank top. Actually, I kind of rocked it. You know what I mean? Like going to the gym for a lot of people really starts to put, because again, they're failing in advance or they're afraid of being successful. So maybe it's like you just go there and do like, maybe it's not that you're doing in the weight section, but you're in a class. Like there's just different things that you can do to start to expand, but you have to intentionally put yourself in those situations that
Hmm.
will push those boundaries because again, every step towards your goal, even though we want to get to the goal because we think the goal is what's going to make us feel better, you're becoming a different version of yourself. And that is uncomfortable. And that is stretching and your capacity of who you are, you're pushing up against the edge of it and you're like, can I go to that next level? Can I be someone who could, for me, in my case, hold that much responsibility in my business, hold that those people's opinions, hold expanding my revenue, hold, right? Like that's the stuff that, and I always feel like it's like I can feel myself expanding, right? Like, and you can feel when you hit up against that like uncomfortable place again, you're like, oh, got to do some work here. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. I've hit one of my limits. If you ever read the book by Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, he talks a lot about the upper
Hmm.
limit problems. We all have these ceilings that we've created for ourselves. And you only really know once you push up against it. It's when that feeling starts like, I like, and you will usually self sabotage to go back down if you don't intentionally push through it. It's very fascinating.
Hmm. No, it's so important. It's such a, I don't know, it's just, it's such an interesting situation to think, that really, if you have a big goal, the only thing that's really stopping you is yourself, right? When you think
100%.
about it. If you plan for it, if you organize yourself, if you set up milestones so that you understand that you're moving towards it, and if you just move out of your own way and you decide in that moment, like nothing is going to stop me, I'm unstoppable and I am going to reach this goal and I'm going to get support where I need it. Like if you just set these things up in advance, any goal is achievable. Anything. I truly believe that. I truly believe that any goal is achievable. If you are 100% dedicated and working towards that goal, you will always achieve it. It just may take a bit longer than you anticipated, but you will get there eventually.
Yeah, so I hope this was helpful, guys. So if you have a goal and you're not hitting it, maybe it's one of these things, maybe it's all of these things, but like there's always something to take a step back and look at. I know for me, honestly, I've said this before in this podcast, I'll say it again, like having goals for me has been the most life-changing thing ever because when we grow up, right? We have these goals that are kind of set for us. Like you're going to graduate high school, then you're going to maybe, depending where you live, go to college, go to university, or you're going to get married, you're going to have kids. And it's like all these kind of like milestones or goals are preset for a lot of people. Some take a totally different route. But it's like once you hit a certain age, it's like, wait a second, I got to decide my own goals. No one's deciding these goals for me, right? Like it's like no one's going to decide for me if I want to build a multi-million dollar company, or no one's going to decide for me, what kind of car I want to drive, or what kind of relationship I want to have, or where I want to go in the world. Like, and it's very hard for a lot of people when they are very much somebody, they take that lead
You're
from
in the
someone else.
driver's seat.
So
Yeah.
totally. And I just think it's the most when you have goals, even if it's just like I want to go on a 1 week vacation to this place, right? Like I have this goal to go to Mexico or to go to Fiji or whatever. I don't know how I'm going to save up this money. I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's what I want. But that trip will change your life because not just going on that trip, but investing the money in that trip, getting on the airplane, the people you're going to meet, the things that are going to happen, right? Like all of those things. And that's what happens when you have goals. Like having one of the biggest goals for me has always been our business, and it has been the biggest personal development journey I've ever been on. But now I just see this power in like, I have such self-belief that I'm like, I know if I set that goal, I will get it. I've
Yeah,
I look in my
same.
journal, there's so many things I thought were never possible for me. I'm like, done, 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 done. And when I wrote them, they were literally like, I felt like if anyone reads this, they're going to think I'm crazy.
Mhm.
So it's like, and now I have it all and I have bigger goals. And I just, it's such a wonderful way for you just to intentionally keep growing and expanding and pushing your boundaries as long as you don't use them against you. That's all I can say. So many people use, I had a goal, I didn't hit it because I suck. It's like, no, I just needed A, more time, B, more consistency, C, get over my own mindset drama, D, better
Better
planning. You know what I mean?
plan.
Like it's always
Yeah.
something that you could actually look back and say, no, that's actually a reason why. Not me. I just need to look at this differently. So
Mhm.
hopefully this will help you guys set some big ass goals, people. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to, if you have the goal of becoming a coach, we have our holistic nutrition weight loss coach certification open right now for our summer fast track enrollment, which means you can go as fast or as paced as you want. You can check it out at fitchexacademy.com/HWLC. We have $1,200 off right now, which is crazy. And also, we talk a lot about goals and mindset and, how to overcome the stuff and how to really work through, especially around weight loss. So, yeah, if you want to check it out, make sure to visit fitchexacademy.com and we will talk to you guys next week. Have an
Bye,
amazing
everyone.
day. Bye.